So it's
okay. Okay, so we are talking about starting an online course, and you've already got some of it started. And this is for the administrators for building tier 2 support, right? Okay, so let's go. I'm going to go to share screen, and anybody who's watching later can use this as an example. Let's go through and make sure you've got all the pieces that you need in the first place, okay? And I'm just going to do a kind of a twofer right here because I want to make sure you've got all the pieces. So 7 steps to create your online course. Okay, step 1. You have assessed the need and you know what problem it solves. So what's the problem that it solves?
So the problem that it solves is the fact that only 15% of students are making it to graduation and having the skill set to move on. So the rest of the, So if you have that strong system, you're getting more kids knowing what to do with that diploma once they hit that.
Fantastic. So your course, how is your course solving that problem? Are you giving them information? Are you giving them interactive things to do to practice in their classrooms or in their schools? Are you giving them, like, are you saying, here, I'm giving you the 5 steps to, or whatever? Or are you just giving awareness? How are you solving the problem? Is it just education and information? Or are you giving them integration? Like, okay, I'm giving you the way to make it happen.
Yes, and yes. All of the above. So it's gonna starts out and it really makes them do a self-assessment. They walk through everything. They're gonna have to, it's gonna give them assignments where, okay, here's what you need to do. This is what it looks like. I walk you through everything. And then we break, right? We stop for a week. They go dig all of that out. Then they come back as a whole group. We're gonna talk about that. So we'll do like check-ins, weekly check-ins, where we're going to talk about, okay, this is what I have. Now, what do I do with it? Now that I have it, what do I do with it? And we're going to put that in place through each process. So it's going to be every part of that, okay. Right down to I've talked to a gal who is trying to work on a database for me. So that way a whole principal for school-wide can get in, and like all of kindergarten teachers will add their data. Plus, hopefully we can link it to the state dashboard. So it will be pulling that data that the state collects too. And they'll be able to see where they're at in comparison to the other schools in the district, other schools in the state, where they need to get to be, and then even like filter right down to where you can look at a particular student.
Love.
That's what we're hoping for.
That is genius. That's highest water source, right? Because then you become the hub. So we want the hub and the high water source. And that's exactly what you're doing. So that's fantastic. I love it. So it sounds like by the time they get done, what are the outcomes of this course? What are the solutions to the problem? What are the specific things that when they walk away, you can say, you are going to have these 5 solutions, or you're going to know how to do these 7 things?
Yeah, so I did 12 steps. So when they walk away, they'll know how to do 12 things. First of all, they're going to know how to look at they're going to know how to assess their school to basically do a needs-based assessment in any area.
Yep, you don't have to go through all the steps with me. I just want to make sure you have them. And it sounds like, wasn't it the one that we talked at the retreat in June? Is that the one that you were talking about? Yeah, so you assess, and then you do the survey, and then you take them through all those things, and then you're giving them block by block. These are the stepping stones kind of thing to being able to solve the problem. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay, fantastic. Absolutely love. I should have known that you have it all covered because you're Amanda. Okay, so step 2. Once you know what it is, the outcomes that you want to give to them, you know there's a need, there's a problem, and you know how to solve it, and here's the solutions. Then the second thing is to outline your content. And I submit how you can do both as a book and a course. How can you do both at the same time? Because it really is, it could essentially be most of the time, I think, the same thing. So you do the outline for the book and you do the outline for the course, and it could be the same thing. So you have, I saw the outline before, you have your table of contents, right? So how many chapters do you have, or how many categories did you end up with?
Oh, and I did a deep dive with Lamira a while ago, and she walked me through like the outline of my book, and then she walked me through how, like, the ideas of how to turn that into an online course. So I kind of have that already as well.
Great. So you already have the outline as a book, and now you're pulling it into the online course. Is that right?
And I've already written my book. So my book has been written, submitted to an editor.
That's the edited version, right? Yeah. Fantastic. Okay, so you've already got that outline, And in that outline, how many weeks is your course or how many modules?
12.
12. Okay, so that's perfect for the 12 steps and solutions. And then you've got 12 modules, which is perfect. And then your next question is on this. What kind of a like additional accessories do you want to have on there? Do you have it? It sounds like you've been creating downloads. Do you have any video trainings? Do you have any QR code things? Do you have any extra links that you're putting in? What kind of extras are you thinking about including in each of those, or do you have those already that you're thinking of?
I haven't really thought about that.
Okay, that's just something to consider, is the accessories of it's the companion resources that you can give them. And I would encourage you to go back through those modules. And it's almost like you get done with dinner and then you go back, and you go, well, I'm going to put this on the table and we'll put a nice pretty butter thing that looks over here. And you just make it so that it's all finished and it's complete with everything. There's the jam and there's the whatever. It's just all complete. So these kinds of things just add those last bits of resources that will actually cement what you're talking about and actually proliferates what you do. So if you have any short videos, or if you, like in the future, if you end up doing a podcast, you could add in that to your online training. You could put it on the notes underneath and you could say, watch these additional resources, and you could put your podcast links, which would get people onto your podcast. Or, hey, check out my Q&A. I'll be answering these questions in my Q&A. And then once you're done with the Q&A, you would record the Q&A, and then that would become a resource module, right? One of those videos, those trainings. So then you can go, oh, I'm talking about step number 6 today, and blah, 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 just some questions I've had on that, record it. And then in that module next time, you upload that video training. So now you keep fresh, top of mind content from the questions that people are asking. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Love it. And it's that one-time energy that we love and that you do so, so well. Okay, so think about that. You've done that already. Excellent, excellent job. Just maybe go back and look for those accessories, those kind of companion resources is probably a better name for it, but I like the accessories, but companion resources. Okay, step number 3, choose your software and format. So you want something to make it easy to record and easy to watch. I know there's a lot of things out there that you can use, and they're wonderful, they're great. I've used different ones, but people watching them, it's not always that easy for them. And so find one that's easy. I am going to recommend, hands down, easiest thing ever, Zoom. So I don't know what your thoughts and feelings are. What's your choice?
Zoom, just because I'm very, very familiar with it.
And it's so easy. So when you choose that, and now you know Zoom, are you thinking that you're going to do just slides, or that you'll do just you speaking, talking head, kind of what they call it, or like this, a hybrid? Where like you go like this and then you stop share, and then maybe you'll talk for a minute on presenter view. So I would click it on here, and then I would just do speaker view. So maybe it's you or it's me, whatever you are thinking. There's gallery right here like this. If you have a guest on or something, but something to consider is if you want to just do straight share screen all the way through. I've done that before. It's a little tricky if you're trying to, because then you have to go back. And I know there's a better way to do it. And I am sad to say that I don't know, because Lamira knows how to do that. But it is trickier to go from like doing this and then go pop to yourself and then come back on the thing. I think it can be a little tricky, and you don't want to be taking time. You probably have to edit it out, and that means more time editing. So it's up to you to decide. I've never had anyone, I do my programs in the past, like the BR Pro and things like that. I've done them just like this with the slides and me and a thumbnail. And I've never had anyone complain about that, but I don't know, what are you comfortable with? The problem sometimes if you're doing a lot of stories, then it might be wise to go ahead and pull back out to just the speaker view, because it's hard to tell a really compelling story with a little thumbnail. So I don't know, what's your thoughts and feelings on that? My
thought was doing both, to show the screen when I needed to, but then pull back and then show the screen, just because I think that, especially in the world of education, we tend to get very disengaged very, very quickly.
You know what? Good point. And they're probably watching a lot of trainings too, and they're going to zone out. I agree. And I was thinking, you got a lot of stories, really compelling stories. So you're definitely going to want to be the talking head on that point, because then you want to really help them to feel the story, the power of the story. So I think that's a really good plan. I really like it. So I think that's great. All right. And then choosing your host for step 4. That's the member vault, Thinkific, all of that. You can do a call with Lamira for how to do the member vault. And there's a lot of bells and whistles on that. we are looking at doing something that's more of a platform that we host people's stuff and then put it out there for you guys, and we can have all kinds of cool stuff that goes with it. And so that's what we're looking into right now. But for now, you can go ahead and plan on checking out the Member Vault, and she can tell you all the pros and cons and all the things of that. We have loved Member Vault, loved it. Easy to use, and the people who are using it, very user friendly. All right, there's no questions on that. Next step is choose your community. So Facebook, subscription, Q&A, there's going to need to be a way for you, like you were saying, they're going to have homework and then they have weekly check-ins. So on that weekly check-in, are you thinking that's just a weekly Q&A? And are you doing that on Zoom? Or are you going to do it on Facebook? Or are you going to create a subscription community? Any thoughts on that you've had, or a desire, like a vision of what you want? And then we can figure out what that would look like.
I thought about just doing it on Zoom, just a Q&A where we could come together, and I just thought about on Zoom. I haven't really thought about any other option.
So a couple of thoughts on that. I think Zoom is super great for Q&As like that, right? Just to come together on Zoom. It's something to consider that either you do just kind of a Q&A once a week that you're like for half hour, 45 minutes, anybody can come on. I think it's also something to consider that in some fashion, you start creating a community. So it's not just a hit and miss. It's come into my private Facebook community for administrators and students and parents or whatever, or maybe you separated them out. Maybe you think that's a better way to do it. I don't know. I know your whole thing is on Unity, but bringing them in, maybe it's that Q&A each week on your Facebook group. And that community can end up becoming a subscription community. So for example, if you sell your online course, you can say it usually goes, your content is so valuable. So say it's for like $6.99 or $5.99 or whatever your course is for, but you're saying for educators or for administrators or whatever, you get a discount, right? So for opposed to like maybe general public or whatever, if you're on my Facebook community, you get a discount for this course. So if you join my community, you get a discount on the course, and I'm going to give you 1 month free subscription to my community, which is only $49 a month or something like that. Because your information that you're going to give on those Q&As is so valuable that you really should be charging way more. But I'm wondering if for your particular situation, sometimes it's better with something that could go more mass, that you do more like a smaller amount for a community. So like there's a gal that does a speaking community, and she does it for people all over the world, and it's for women, female speakers. And I went on there for a little bit, and honest to Pete, there's so many and great stuff that they're sharing. But I only got on like once or twice because it was so much amazing stuff. But she was able to take people from all these different time zones, and the people were kind of teaching each other eventually. And she was popping on every week, and she was giving them great stuff. It was only $49. It was crazy, amazing value. So many people were super happy to be on there. And that's how she was able to create her greater reach and make it not stressful for her. She was doing one-time energy, and it was really a small investment for everybody else. But you could do it where if you sell your online course to these guys, then they get a discount on that course, and they also get 1 month free, like I was saying, so they can try it out and see, and then they can stop the subscription if they don't want it. I don't know. How does that feel for you?
That feels like Lamira's going to have to teach me a lot about that.
Actually, it's super easy. In this day and age, it's actually set up really easily on the back end. And so it's just a matter of you basically going on Facebook and you just going on and doing your thing once a week. It would just be more on Facebook, or if you do it on Zoom, then you would go on Zoom and it would go on Facebook as well. There's a little button at the very bottom, and you literally just click the bottom on the bottom bar of the Zoom, and it says more, and it just says, go live to Facebook. You just click it and go on. So you could really do both. You could do Zoom and Facebook, and it would be super easy. But like I said, schedule a session with Lamira and just find out what's the best way to do it. Your content would really lend itself to that, I think, but go ahead, think about it, pray about it, and see what you think. Whatever you do, create a community from what you do. So it's not a one-time hit and run. You want to be able to create a sense of unity and community through it, that you're building this sort of movement about this, which is what you are doing. So that lends itself to that. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. All right. See how that sits with you. But whatever way you choose to do, you could just do a weekly Q&A on Zoom and just have people come, but that really doesn't grow. It doesn't multiply and replenish. So think about the way that works best for you. And you would not have to do a lot with it. Once you get people in there, they will start asking questions and solving questions themselves. And then you could actually have someone volunteer and come on and say, Tuesday, Thursday, why don't you come on and answer any questions or whatever? Or you have guests that come on and then they answer questions. So it's not something you would have to spend a ton of time nourishing. I mean, you want to nourish, but you personally having to do that, you could find other ways to do it. So that's just a thought. Okay. Step number 6, then choose your promotion method. So it sounds to me like you're going to do it mainly through speaking. Is that right? Because these are just a couple of ideas. That's not the only ways to do it. But I could also see you in the future doing a podcast. Would you be interested in doing a podcast?
Yeah, I've already kind of had downloads on that. But
of course you have.
I'll be doing. Yeah.
Yeah, this lends itself so well to that. Can you see yourself having guests on there and those guests being able to share pieces of your thing? So you're not the only one talking all the time, but you can add into what they're saying. And then you record that podcast, and what do you do with it? You put it in your Facebook group community, right? So you have posts and materials, but meanwhile, you're posting it on iTunes and they're posting it on their social media. So now you're increasing reach so people know about it. And what are you telling them to do? Come into my community. So you would have your main seedbed community that's just everybody. And then you would have your online course community where that's where you're doing your Zoom Q&A and things like that for those that bought the online courses. Does that make sense? Awesome. All right. That sounds really good. And then the step 7 is, where does it lead and what's their next right step? So like that, when they've done that online course, then what is at the end of that course? What's that last tile, that last screen, that last thing that tells them, what do you do now? Is it leading them to a different course? Are you saying, I have a whole series of courses, check those out? Or are you saying, go check out my book? Because if it's the online course and it's the same as the book, then probably you're going to want to kick in the online book, the ebook with the online course, because it's the same thing, right? It's just different format. So where's the next right step? Have you thought about that? I know you've thought about it. You've got like 52 billion things that you do, but what's the next step that you want to keep them progressing in the learning?
Honestly, I don't know on this. I'm thinking, because one thing that I thought that I would do is say, like, if you recommend so many people to take my course, then I will come and put all your teachers under simulation for, $100 or something. I don't know. I was kind of thinking that. So it kind of lead to speaking a little bit.
Yes. And keep the cycle going. I like that idea of something like that, saying, if you do X, then I will give you Y. Again, I think really, truly, I think this lends itself to a community, some kind of subscription community or something, because that would be an easy next step. You wouldn't feel pressure to have the very next course ready or the next thing. You could do it as you desire. And then your community is already prepared for whatever you're bringing out next. Then you could already say, hey, I've got my new course coming. You can seedbed that and say, I'm working on it. It's going great. Oh, I'm only 3 weeks to launch. I'm looking for beta people to test, right? I mean, that's all within your community. And if you're wanting unity between all these three, this is a great way to do that. But again, I think that's just something that would work really well for you. Some people, it would work well to go from here and go into coaching, like more intense coaching, like we do with the retreat. The next step is it leads to the 1-year coaching program. But for you, and for other people, it might be like, oh, it just leads to a 12-month coaching program or weekly coaching or whatever. I think for you, the subscription would make sense. But again, you can decide, because in order to put it into practice, they're going to need some kind of soft touch, like some kind of high touch. They're going to need something that helps do the follow-up to the homework that they're doing and all of those things. And eventually, if it gets too scaled and you're like, wow, there's too many questions on this weekly Q&A, you can end up having 2 Q&As and have somebody else come on, a guest Q&A person. You're getting a lot of questions in about X, Y, and Z. Then you bring in a guest and have them come on a Thursday. Say you go on your Tuesday Q&A. On Thursdays, you could have someone come in as a guest, different guests that answer the questions so that you're not always the one that's going to be doing that. Does that sound good, or how does that sit?
Yeah, that actually sounds like I can see how the community would lend itself very well there. Yeah.
I do too.
And the coaching piece.
And because that Q&A becomes your coaching piece, and then your podcast guests, you would just filter them right into, hey, I loved our podcast interview. I'd love to spotlight you and have you come on to our Facebook group community. So then you could put the podcast out there as a teaser and say, had a great interview with this person. They're going to be on in 2 weeks. So listen to the podcast. And if you've got questions, they're going to be on so they can answer all the Q&A stuff, which would be just a beautiful, beautiful, combination that you could have there. And it's leveraging that one-time energy. How does that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, girl, you've got so many things. I can see why you're feeling like, oh, I have all this download going on, because you got a lot that you can choose from, a lot you can do. Okay, so now that we kind of gone through those pieces, you've done so good. Where are you at then with that course? Do you need to work on your completing the content, or is it that you need to fill it into more of an online course recording format? Or do you need to go back and make sure you've got all the stories and everything? Where are you at with it?
So I'm waiting to hear how I would love your feedback on my book.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Because once I've got feedback on my book and it's ready to go, my thought is then I'm ready to start. I'm starting to piece in some of my downloads. I'm starting to put that into Member Vault. And then as soon as I'm good on the book, then I'm going to start the recording.
Awesome.
So that's what I'm looking at. There is a small piece of me that, although I know I'm on the right track, I feel very inadequate in like I know how to do the data, but when I'm looking at what I want to do, as far as like having it all linked and so we can filter down, like I'm not skilled in that area. I know what it needs to look like, but to build the system to get there, I'm not quite there. So I'm almost wondering if that's like a to come thing. Like I could lead them to, this could be to come until we build it and figure it out. But yeah, until then I was even thinking of betaing that with them. Like, hey, what systems do you have in place already that allows you to filter down and to see your current reality? Like, what are you looking at? And that would help me get some ideas.
I think that's a perfect idea. Perfect idea. Don't feel rushed to fulfill all parts of the vision. Just keep taking it that chewable chunk at a time. Very, very good. And with you recording, I would encourage you to look at the pieces of the recording then. So to start recording, are you thinking you want to wait until, like you just said, the book is completely like, oh, I love it and it's all ready to go, and then I'm going to take the pieces? And are you going to do it pretty much exactly like the book, or are you going to do it like, I'm going to take some key content of the book and I'm going to make it like on slides and make it really pretty? Or like, what's your thinking on that for the look of the course?
So my thought would be taking the book, but building upon the book. So like, yes, you have the book, but we're going to really go in depth and we're going to talk. So it's not going to be like book, like, oh, well, I already bought the book. I didn't need the online course. Exactly. Or, oh, if you have the online course, you don't need the book. It's going to be like, this is your foundation or your outline. And now I'm going to give you the meat and potatoes. That's
exactly what I would recommend, is that it's not just the exact same, because otherwise people are going to be like you said, why would I have to buy this? So I love that you're going to go more in depth, and I would make them aware that that's the difference with the course. And that's where you're going to get those even meatier additional resources, and you're going to keep adding. So maybe let them know it's going to be a living online course that you're going to keep adding to it, or you're going to keep expanding on it, or it's going to add on to series and things like that. I think as you do that, that might be helpful for people to buy into the whole idea of the online course. It's not just a one-time course, it's more of a series, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
And I kind of do that in my book. There'll be a lot of times when I'll be like, okay, if you want to learn more about this, we go in depth in this in my online course, like not here.
That's exactly it. So the rest of the time, you're just giving those Costco samples on the podcast. When you have a guest come on, it's speaking to one of those 12 steps, right? One of those 12 themes, so that it's not that you're trying to hold back content, but you're like, I've got a better way to teach this. And we're going to need a good 30 minutes, 45 minutes to teach this concept. So I'm going to give you a Costco sample, and this guest is going to share why it's so important and what's happened in their life for it. So it adds that credibility. Hey, you really want to know this principle, so that you can say, now, if you want to learn it, I've got this thing on the online course that you can learn it. Because it's not fair to tell them you can learn this and then you can't do it justice when it's a short period of time on a little podcast or a little speaking thing or a little Q&A or whatever. So I think that's really, really good. So what I would encourage you, if I'm hearing this right, is you've got the content, you're waiting for it to finalize. You're already seeing in your mind's eye how to piece it out for the online course. And I would encourage you to consider, if it's 12 modules, how many of those lessons in the modules you're going to have. So like when I did BR Pro, we had a 12-week course and we had 4 modules for each thing, right? There was a module, but within the module, there was several lessons. Some had 3 to 5, some had 7. So you decide in that content how many lessons you want to have kind of it broken down to. And I would encourage shorter the better. So don't worry if you end up with like 10 or 12 lessons and they're only 10 to 15 minutes. 10 to 15 minutes is good, is really good. About 15 minutes, people are checking out. So if you have maybe even one download, say you have 3 to 5 lessons in that half hour, 45 minutes, you want to teach that content for that one step. Now, I don't know what that looks like for you. Maybe you're like, no, for each step, it's just going to be half an hour. But I would have maybe one download for the module, and then each of the lessons inside that module takes a piece of that download. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have 52 pages and downloads. They've got one download or at least one thing that's like a packet for that. And they know that goes with that step. And then you just have it pieced out so that the lesson takes them through, you know, each of those kind of chunky steps. How does that sit?
Yeah, I think that's kind of how I have it set up a little bit.
Love, 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 love.
Yeah.
If you can, just go through and make sure that as an online course outline, not your book outline, but as an online course, if you can make sure it's consistent that way, that'll be perfect. And just like in the guidebook where we have the mini keynote outline, if you want to go back through and just make sure, which I'm sure you have, but just make sure that if you look through that module and then you say, okay, I've got 3 to 5 lessons, make sure in those 3 to 5 lessons, just pop in a cool story like you always have, thousands of those. A really good, powerful story or a stat or a celebrity experience or a quote, a key quote, that keeps each one of those lessons being juicy. That way, when you're telling, you're doing a lesson, if you can even start with some kind of a symbolic story or I call them signature stories. If you have a signature story or something that even at the start of the module, you could even weave through the lessons. But if that's too much stress, just pop in those little things that will add that pop each time. Well, the stat, and then this quote, and then this experience in the district, and then this, and that keeps it really poppy. And people feel like, oh my gosh, the time was so fast. You do a genius job with that. But just maybe go back through and just take another lens through and just a little breeze through and go, okay, do I have that in those 12 steps? And do I have that in the lessons so that the lessons feel really upbeat and enjoyable and they're integrating, right? They're interactive, they're doing something. Now they don't have to do something every lesson, but they should be able to do a few things in each of those modules, which knowing you, they're going to do.
I'm just taking notes, hold on.
Go right ahead.
Okay.
So the next steps I would encourage you to do is go back and review the content through the lens of an online course. And then the second thing that I would encourage you to do, I have 3 things. So I would encourage you to look through that lens of an online course and be able to think someone's sitting there for 15 minutes at a time. They're going to be in their car, they're going to be in their office, they're going to be dead tired. They're going to be like, whatever. What can I do to keep them engaged? What can I do to keep them engaged with this content? Now you're an engaging speaker, but you could even do like 5 template slides. And we have slide templates that you can ask Lemire about if you want to kind of copy the idea, because we have it in our colors and things like that, but copy that idea. But have ones like you just saw with me. You know, I've got the flower because flowers are more of my branding. So I have orange as my color, and I have orange, deep gray, so almost looks like a black, but it's a soft black. And then I have white. Those are my 3 branding colors. And then I usually do a slide template, kind of a package that I just have. I keep it like that, and then I copy it, and then I start doing another presentation from it. And from there, I've got like a blank slide with just the flowers. And then I've got a block slide that's got orange on one side and white on one side. And then I have one that's the reverse, a kind of a domino. And then I have one that's like a dark gray with white on it that I can do a header on the top, and then I could list things underneath. Then I have just a blank slide if I want to just put something like a picture, but I want a thing on the background, kind of a fill in. So I have like 5, maybe 6 sort of template slides. And then doing the presentations is a breeze. So easy. Because then I'm just plugging in content. I'm just doing it like a slide thing. I use some of the fun little cool tools. That's it. It's super, super slick. If you are engaging as a person, you just need very small content unless you're doing stats or quotes. You don't need a ton of content because you're going to be sharing it. But the key pieces you're going to want to put on that slide that you want them to remember. So when I do slides, like I say, if I've got 3, 4, 5 things that I'm like, oh, they really need to know this, then maybe I'll do a couple and I'll do a story or something, and then I'll do a couple more and then do a stat or a quote or something so that they're staying engaged even though I've got several things to share. Okay, so that's the first thing. Go back, look through that lens for the online course, which I'm sure you've already done, but just to make sure that you go through and get that finesse, because once you start recording, you do not want to go back and mess with the content. You just want to like get her done, right? The second thing is choose your setup. So choose where in your house or in an office or where you want to film. So I'm in my office right now, and I know what time of day is best for me to film. And it's generally most of the time of the days, but I face, the way I set up my studio here is I have it at an angle so that there's depth. So depth is a really good thing instead of just a straight on 2-dimensional thing that most people do. Depth is good. And then lighting and sound are huge. So it's really good to still use a Zoom. Just make sure you're sitting kind of close. I have a soft laptop desk thing that I put on top of my desk here, plus 2 big thick books that have just the perfect stand. Now I have one of those laptop things you can adjust, but I can't get it to the right thing. So just find the right thing where you have more of a talking head like this. And you could even up it just a smidgen more if you wanted. You don't want too much above your head like that. You want just slightly, a little bit above your head like that for recording. And then make sure you're facing light. So I did it this way so that I could face my window. And I can't tell you how many times I'm on some professional podcast being interviewed, and they're like, man, your studio lighting is so good. And I am cracking up because this is my studio, right? It's my little room in my house. It's my office, but the lighting is so good. I don't even need a light kit. So go walk around the house with your laptop and see where the best lighting is. And then you could set up a vignette behind you. You could just get an armoire thing that's a low and put some flowers like this. Angela made this little flower. So it's always like this. People like, oh, your flowers are so pretty. Yeah, they're dry. They're silk, but they're really, really pretty and they stay constant. And then I put up different things. I've got these shelves right here. So I can take down, like when I'm doing Disciple Thought Leader, I can do that. If I'm doing something that I know is really strictly business and that they would be offended by anything religious, then I have my UV magazine thing that if they want credibility, then I put that up. That's I was on the cover or something. Okay, they want credibility. But most of the time I just have a picture of the Savior and I just say, too bad for you. So anyway, in the best possible way. But anyway, that just gives you that kind of an idea of a setup so that it gives you freedom to be able to put something. Sometimes you just need a little something. This screen I got on sale clearance for $58. There was 2 of them, and it's the best investment I ever made. So I would invite you to look for a screen. It covers a multitude of sins. So wherever you are, you could just put up the screen and make your own little thing. And again, try to find a smaller room that will give you that good echo, that good reverb so that you are able to have good sound. So I generally can just get away with this. I don't need to generally have, I've got my podcast thing if I'm doing it. And even if I want to record it for a course, then I can just get my Blue Snowball microphone that I would use for a podcast anyway. And I just plug it with this plug right into my laptop and speak. That's it. Spit guard, put it in, and then I can just speak. Now you need the Audacity software to download. Don't worry about it. It's all in Member Vault, so you'll know all this stuff. And Lemire can take you through that as well. I'm just giving you a heads up for setting up your setup. That's the second thing you're going to want to think. You're going to want to brainstorm that. Is it branded? Does it look and feel like Amanda, right? Now tell me your tagline again, because isn't it the break the mold?
Mm-hmm.
So think, what are the colors? I'm sure you've already done your branding, but what are the colors on that? What's your feel on that? What's the tone on that? When you have someone, you pop up your screen, I want a combination of warm, credible, perky, inspirational, fun, engaging. I want that whole feel, right? What's the feel you want? When that screen pops up, that's what you want to have.
I want bold and hopeful. So
Well,
yeah, so mine is the trees. Mine is the huge redwoods or the huge sequoias. So it's like, it's bold, but yet it's like growth and hopeful. So yeah.
Okay, so think about what that would look like. Green foliage behind you, you know, some very sturdy pieces that you would have that would be meaningful. Look around and see if there's something from nature that's very meaningful to you, or something that has to do with the trees, or something that looks bold, and have those pieces behind you so that the feel is that, right? So it sounds earthy and kind of mountain and rock and that kind of a feel. So think about that for the setup. And that's something you could ask Rochelle about too, because she does interior design stuff. So you could do a session with Rochelle and ask her about setup. All these awesome, helpful tools. The last thing is, once you get your setup, once you've got your Zoom, once you decide if you want to do the mic or not, or whatever, this is all, it won't take that long. Then do a practice module. Do a practice module and then send it to us or send it to the group, the DTLC, and get feedback on it before you do a whole bunch. So one of the gals in the group, she did the meditation thing, and she did it on her Facebook, and the content was so good. It was so good, but she filmed it too far away. So it was really an intimate, and meditation is you want to be right up here and you want them to feel that you're right with them. And she was super far away like that, so you could hardly even really see. So I would invite you to do a practice one and then look at it, maybe do another one again, one that you feel really good about, and then post it and get beta on it. And then then you can just start sitting down, and you got a half an hour. I'm going to do 2 modules or 2 lessons, or I'm going to do 3 lessons, whatever you need to do. How's that sound?
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, that's the sound. I'm going to take us off record.